Welcome to session 2. The thing you run to is the thing training you. Man, I'm glad you're back. In fact, the fact that you are here matters because formation doesn't happen in moments, it happens through consistency. Last week, we talked about inspiration. Last week wasn't about inspiration, it was about awareness. And if you were honest, some things probably surfaced that would have been easier to ignore. And that's how this works. This group isn't built on hype, it's built on follow through. We show up, we do the reading, we don't dodge the challenge when it presses on something real. Why? Because the call of God doesn't just ask you to answer, it asks you to stay. Everyone say stay. And here's the truth. Most men don't quit loudly, they fade quietly. Most men don't quit loudly, they fade quietly. They escape instead of endure. So tonight, we're not talking about big failure. We're talking about small exits. The habits, patterns, and shortcuts that we use when pressure shows up. This is where endurance is formed. Not when it's dramatic, but when it's uncomfortable. So let's get into it. Today, we're talking about enduring. And here's the truth that most men don't like to hear. Endurance doesn't fail because men are weak. It doesn't fail because men are weak. It fails because men escape. Historically, men were trained to endure. Not emotionally processed out of pressure, but formed by it. Modern men, however, are trained to avoid. We don't remove pressure, we mute it. And when pressure comes, the wilderness doesn't create something new. It reveals what we already trust to save us. And God exposes this pattern. Let's look at Deuteronomy chapter 8. This is Moses speaking to a generation of men who have survived the wilderness but didn't understand it. In Deuteronomy 8:2, verses 2 through 3, it says, "And you shall remember the whole way that the Lord your God has led you these 40 years in the wilderness, that he might humble you, testing to know what was in your heart, whether you would keep his command or not. And he humbled you and let you hunger and fed you with manna, which you did not know, nor did your fathers know, that he might make you know that man does not live by bread alone, but man lives by every word that comes from the mouth of the Lord." He's talking about the bread that they ate while in the wilderness, which he provided. And he was saying, hey, trust me. And culturally, this matters. In the ancient world, the wilderness was not accidental space. It was training ground. Israel didn't wander randomly. God led them there on purpose. Why? Because comfort reveals nothing, but pressure reveals allegiance. Comfort reveals nothing, but pressure reveals allegiance. You see, God let them hunger, not to harm them, but to show them what they believed would sustain them. Would it be bread or his voice? And the same is true for us. Escape can become our master. You see, every culture forms men through pressure and response. In Roman culture, boys were trained through resistance. In Jewish culture, young men memorized scripture under discipline. In military cultures, endurance was forged, not discussed. In modern culture, flip that. Now we treat discomfort as malfunction. So men don't endure, they escape. And escape always follow the same pattern. Escape promises relief, but it delivers a codependence. Food becomes comfort. Alcohol becomes the off switch. Porn becomes validation. Scrolling becomes numbness. Work becomes avoidance. Gaming becomes disappearance. Sarcasm becomes armor. Isolation becomes control. And here's the dangerous part. At first, you choose the escape. But eventually, the escape chooses you. And over time, the thing you run to starts training you. And it trains you to quit instead of stay. Now, contrast this with the model of Jesus, the counter model. Jesus never escaped the pressure. He fasted in the wilderness. He prayed under betrayal. He stayed present under accusation. He endured the cross instead of avoiding it. Why? Because endurance isn't personality. It's the ability to stay when quitting would be easier. The scripture tells us plainly in Hebrews 10, for you have need of endurance so that when you have done the will of God, you may receive what is promised. Endurance is not passive. In the Greek, the word here implies remaining under the weight without retreat, meaning you don't run from resistance, you let it shape you. Every time you escape, you forfeit formation. And here's what I love about this moment. You don't need prayer to identify your escape. You already know what it is. Why? Because you protect it, you justify it, you minimize it, you schedule your life around it, you get defensive when it's challenged, and that's how you know it's not neutral. If someone threatened to take it away, you would feel curious, frustrated. You'd feel exposed. That reaction tells you exactly how much authority it holds in your life. Man, endurance does not begin with information. It begins with honesty. So let's put this into practice. I hope you're staying faithful with your reading plan. I hope you're answering the challenge, because here is your next one. Challenge number 3, identify the escape hatch. This is the internal exposure. I want you to write down the one thing that you consistently run to when life gets heavy. Could be food, alcohol, pornography, scrolling, isolation, sarcasm, work, gaming, sleep. What emotion are you avoiding when you use it? When this habit first became your go-to coping mechanism, what was happening in your life? Listen, I want you to answer honestly. What am I afraid would surface if I don't escape? Challenge number 4, abstain from the one thing. For 7 consecutive days, abstain from the one escape that you least want to give up. And here's the requirements. I want you to tell your group what you're abstaining from. I want you to tell them why it's hard if you fail. And I want you to confess to the group by the time you meet again, if not sooner. This is not about perfection. It's about honesty and endurance. Men, hear this clearly. God cannot train what you keep numbing. He can't strengthen what you keep avoiding. He can't build endurance in a man who keeps reaching for relief instead of remaining under the weight. The wilderness is not punishment, it's preparation. And endurance starts when escape ends. On the other side of this week is not a stronger habit, it's a stronger man. One who can stay, one who stays present, one who stays clear, one who stays faithful, one who stays when things get difficult. That's who God is forming, and that's who we are becoming together.